For a time, it seemed like COVID-19 vaccines would be Big Pharma's golden ticket forever. In the depths of the pandemic, vaccines from companies like Moderna and Pfizer weren't just life-saving breakthroughs. They were global commodities, flooding the market with billions of doses and generating unprecedented profits. Moderna, almost an unknown company before 2020, suddenly found itself riding a tidal wave of revenue, pulling in over $18 billion in 2021 alone from its COVID-19 vaccine, Spikevax. Pfizer, similarly, became a dominant force, with its vaccine community bringing in tens of billions and reshaping its financial future. But by 2022, cracks began to show. Booster fatigue set in. Public enthusiasm for additional doses started to fade. As the virus evolved and new variants appeared, many people questioned whether repeated vaccinations were necessary or effective. Vaccine hesitancy wasn't just among the skeptics anymore, it had seeped into the mainstream. Governments that had once raced to secure vaccine stockpiles began canceling orders. Health authorities adjusted guidelines, quietly moving away from aggressive booster campaigns. What was once a guaranteed cash cow for Big Pharma started drying up. In 2023, the financial reality hit hard. Moderna reported a staggering 73% decline in its COVID vaccine revenue compared to the year before. Pfizer didn't fare much better. Analysts had predicted slowing sales, but the drop-off was sharper and faster than most expected. Moderna's total revenue fell from nearly $19 billion in 2022 to just over $6 billion by the end of 2023, a collapse that sent ripples through the biotech sector and alarmed investors. Pfizer slashed its full-year forecast by billions, citing weaker-than-expected COVID product sales. The so-called pandemic profits had come to an abrupt and sobering end. Behind the scenes, the pharmaceutical giants realized they had a serious problem. Their entire growth models for the past 3 years had depended heavily, almost exclusively, on pandemic-related sales. Now, with COVID vaccine profits evaporating, they faced a stark reality: find a new blockbuster, or watch their valuations crumble. This urgency sparked a furious race inside Big Pharma's boardrooms. The industry needed a replacement revenue stream, something even bigger and more enduring than the COVID vaccines had been. It had to be something that could be marketed globally, administered routinely, and perhaps even mandated under the right conditions. The stakes were enormous, not just for profits, but for the very survival of companies that had rapidly expanded during the pandemic boom. At the same time, public trust in pharmaceutical companies was slipping. Surveys showed that confidence in vaccines, once at historic highs during early 2021, had significantly declined by late 2023. A large segment of the population, even those previously supportive of vaccines, began expressing skepticism about pharmaceutical motives. Questions about side effects, transparency in reporting clinical trial data, and the rush to approval for COVID-19 vaccines all contributed to a rising wave of doubt. This erosion of trust created a new problem. Whatever Big Pharma did next, it needed to be positioned not merely as a product, but as a savior. It had to tap into primal human emotions: hope, fear, survival. And there was one battlefield where those emotions were already raw and ever-present: cancer. Cancer had long been seen as the holy grail of pharmaceutical innovation. Billions had been spent over decades trying to find effective cures, but the dream of eradicating cancer remained elusive. It was a perfect target, a disease that touches nearly every family, invokes intense fear, and commands public sympathy. If companies like Moderna and Pfizer could pivot their mRNA technology, originally developed for COVID vaccines, toward fighting cancer, they could reignite public enthusiasm while opening a market potentially far larger and more durable than anything COVID had offered. This wasn't just about science. It was about survival. The survival of pharmaceutical empires built during the pandemic and now scrambling to avoid collapse. Cancer vaccines, gene therapy innovations, and a new wave of mRNA-based treatments would soon become the next frontier. Big Pharma's future depended on it. And as we'll see, the rush into this new era wasn't just fast. It was aggressive, calculated, and laden with both promise and peril. The COVID vaccine boom was over. But for Big Pharma, the real gold rush was only just beginning. The rise of mRNA technology, a new frontier, the birth of a miracle molecule, messenger RNA, or mRNA, has existed in scientific literature for decades, but it wasn't until the COVID-19 pandemic that it captured the world's imagination. For years, researchers had speculated about the potential of mRNA to revolutionize medicine, offering a way to instruct the body's cells to produce specific proteins that could fight disease. But practical applications remained elusive, largely confined to laboratory experiments and early-stage trials. When COVID struck, however, mRNA technology was thrust into the global spotlight almost overnight. The vaccines developed by Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech marked the first time in history that mRNA therapeutics were used on a mass scale. These vaccines didn't contain live viruses or weakened pathogens like traditional vaccines. Instead, they carried a small snippet of genetic code that instructed human cells to produce a harmless piece of the coronavirus's spike protein, training the immune system to recognize and destroy the real virus if it ever appeared. It was a bold, risky approach, one that had never been proven at scale before, but the results were astonishing. Within months, hundreds of millions of doses were manufactured, distributed, and injected into arms around the world. To many, mRNA seemed like a miracle. The speed of development was unprecedented. Vaccines that once took years to perfect were rolled out in record time. Governments celebrated, pharmaceutical companies reaped enormous profits, and a new era of biotechnology appeared to be dawning. mRNA had moved from a theoretical curiosity to the savior of a global health crisis. The new promised land for Big Pharma are inside the executive suites of companies like Moderna and Pfizer. The success of mRNA vaccines wasn't just seen as a scientific triumph. It was viewed as proof of a limitless business opportunity. If mRNA could be used to protect against COVID-19, why not apply it to a whole range of diseases? The body's ability to manufacture its own therapeutic proteins on demand opened the door to treating conditions far beyond infectious disease. Cancer, heart disease, autoimmune disorders, even genetic conditions once thought incurable, all became targets in a rapidly expanding vision of what mRNA technology could achieve. Moderna moved quickly to position itself as a pioneer in this new frontier. The company announced a sprawling pipeline of mRNA-based products beyond COVID. Personalized cancer vaccines topped the list, but there were also plans for mRNA treatments against viruses like RSV and influenza, and even rare diseases with no existing cures. Moderna's 2023 pipeline included over 45 active mRNA programs in development, a staggering expansion from just a handful prior to the pandemic. Pfizer, already a pharmaceutical titan, wasn't going to be left behind. Leveraging its partnership with BioNTech and its newly acquired mRNA expertise, Pfizer launched a robust mRNA development program of its own. The company announced plans for new mRNA vaccines targeting shingles, influenza, and other infectious diseases. It even began exploring mRNA applications for oncology, rare genetic disorders, and inflammatory diseases. The message to investors was clear: mRNA was not a one-time phenomenon. It was the future of medicine, and Pfizer intended to dominate it. Wall Street's insatiable appetite for mRNA gold. The excitement wasn't limited to pharmaceutical companies alone. Wall Street, venture capitalists, and biotech investors quickly recognized the financial potential of mRNA technology. Billions of dollars flooded into biotech startups, many of them promising to use mRNA for everything from vaccine development to gene editing. Companies with little more than a promising preclinical study found themselves valued at astronomical sums, as investors chased the next Moderna. This investor frenzy brought intense pressure on Big Pharma to move quickly. It wasn't enough to have theoretical treatments in the lab. Companies needed real products in clinical trials and, ideally, on the market as soon as possible. Speed became the name of the game. Clinical trials that would once take years were now being compressed. The same emergency use mindset that characterized the COVID vaccine rollout was bleeding into new areas of drug development. Investors demanded quarterly updates, promising data points, and aggressive timelines. Moderna, Pfizer, and other biotech players found themselves racing not just against disease, but against shareholder expectations. As a result, mRNA technology was pushed into diseases that had long eluded easy answers. Cancer, with its complexity and emotional weight, became an especially appealing target. Flu vaccines, traditionally updated annually using older technologies, now faced disruption from mRNA-based alternatives promising faster development and better strain matching. RSV, a virus historically overlooked in adult populations, suddenly found itself at the center of a pharmaceutical arms race. The commercialization of mRNA technology was no longer just about solving medical problems. It was about capitalizing on a once-in-a-generation shift in how medicine could be conceived, developed, and sold. For Big Pharma, mRNA wasn't merely a tool to fight disease. It had become a platform, a business model, a financial ecosystem unto itself. The race to commercialize it was on, and the stakes were higher than ever before. The miracle molecule had found its moment. But as we'll soon explore, the path from pandemic savior to everyday medical solution would be anything but straightforward. Cancer vaccines, Big Pharma's shiny new hope. How cancer vaccines work. When most people hear the word vaccine, they think of preventing infectious diseases like measles or polio. But cancer vaccines are different. Instead of protecting the body from an invading virus, Cancer vaccines are designed to train the immune system to recognize and attack cancer cells that have already developed. The basic principle is deceptively simple. Teach the body to see cancer not as part of itself, but as a dangerous threat that must be eliminated. Cancer cells often evade detection because they closely resemble normal, healthy cells. They hide in plain sight, mutating in ways that allow them to escape the immune system's natural defenses. A cancer vaccine works by presenting specific markers, called neoantigens, from a patient's own tumor to the immune system. These neoantigens are essentially red flags, unique to the cancer, that help the immune system distinguish friend from foe. mRNA technology offers a revolutionary approach to delivering these red flags. By encoding the instructions for the neoantigens directly into mRNA molecules, the vaccine prompts the patient's own cells to produce the telltale markers. This, in turn, trains the immune system to seek out and destroy any cells carrying those signals. It is a highly personalized form of medicine, tailored to each individual's unique cancer profile. And for companies like Moderna, it represents not just scientific progress but the potential for an entirely new medical industry. Moderna's personalized cancer vaccine trial. After the success of its COVID-19 vaccine, Moderna turned its mRNA technology toward the war on cancer with stunning speed. In partnership with Merck, one of the giants of the pharmaceutical world, Moderna launched clinical trials for a personalized cancer vaccine known as mRNA 4157. This vaccine is custom designed for each patient, based on the specific mutations found in their tumors. The early results have been promising, even groundbreaking. In a phase 2 trial focused on patients with high-risk melanoma, Moderna's personalized mRNA cancer vaccine, when combined with Merck's immunotherapy drug Keytruda, reduced the risk of cancer recurrence or death by an impressive 44% compared to Keytruda alone. These numbers sent shockwaves through the medical community and Wall Street alike. It wasn't just the efficacy data that captured attention. It was the validation of a new concept, that mRNA could be harnessed beyond infectious disease and used to tailor treatments to the genetic fingerprints of each patient's cancer. Moderna's CEO Stéphane Bancel called it the beginning of a new chapter in medicine, hinting that the same approach could soon be expanded to other types of cancer, including lung, colorectal, and pancreatic cancers, diseases that have long defied conventional therapies. The prospect of offering a vaccine personalized for each cancer patient is revolutionary, but it is also logistically complex. It requires rapid genetic sequencing, customized mRNA manufacturing, and coordinated delivery systems, all of which carry enormous costs. But for Big Pharma, the financial risks are outweighed by the potential rewards. Personalized cancer vaccines could command premium pricing, and because cancer is such a devastating diagnosis, demand would likely remain high even at extraordinary cost levels. The billion-dollar partnership, Moderna and Merck, recognizing the enormous potential of personalized cancer vaccines, Moderna and Merck deepened their collaboration in 2022. Merck exercised an option to jointly develop and commercialize mRNA 4157, paying Moderna a hefty $250 million upfront. The deal was structured to allow for shared profits and expenses, creating one of the most significant alliances in the new era of mRNA-based cancer treatment. Behind this partnership was a strategic calculation. Merck had already achieved massive success with Keytruda, one of the world's top-selling cancer immunotherapies. By pairing Keytruda with Moderna's personalized vaccine, Merck hoped to extend Keytruda's dominance while simultaneously establishing a foothold in the next generation of cancer therapies. For Moderna, the collaboration offered credibility, resources, and access to Merck's global oncology networks, all essential for scaling up personalized vaccine production and distribution. Investors reacted enthusiastically. The stock prices of both companies climbed following announcements of trial successes and expanded partnerships. Analysts began forecasting a multi-billion-dollar market for personalized cancer vaccines, predicting that if the technology succeeded, it could revolutionize oncology the way mRNA had revolutionized vaccine science during the pandemic. But beyond the financial incentives, the emotional pull of this innovation cannot be overstated. The emotional power behind curing cancer. There are few phrases more powerful in the human experience than curing cancer. Cancer touches nearly every family, every community, every country. It is a disease that strikes fear into the hearts of millions and evokes a profound desire for hope, progress, and salvation. Big Pharma understands this emotional landscape deeply. Marketing cancer vaccines is not just about presenting clinical trial data or regulatory approvals. It is about offering a narrative of triumph against one of humanity's most terrifying enemies. It taps into primal emotions: fear of death, hope for survival, love for family. When a pharmaceutical company promises a vaccine that could prevent cancer from returning, it isn't merely selling a product. It is selling the possibility of a future that many believed was beyond reach. This emotional marketing power gives Big Pharma a unique advantage. Public skepticism that grew during the COVID-19 vaccine campaigns may soften in the face of cancer vaccines. Few people would refuse a shot that might spare them or their loved ones from a deadly recurrence. The messaging practically writes itself: personalized protection, cutting-edge science, a lifeline against a disease that has taken too much for too long. Yet beneath the surface lies a complex web of scientific, ethical, and financial questions. Personalized cancer vaccines are a technological marvel, but they also represent a significant shift toward ultra-expensive, highly individualized treatments. They raise questions about access, equity, and the true motives of an industry that, for all its advances, remains ultimately driven by profit. Still, the emotional resonance of the fight against cancer ensures that mRNA cancer vaccines will be the spearhead of Big Pharma's next wave. Moderna and Merck's early successes have set the stage. Other companies are racing to join them, developing their own personalized vaccines and immunotherapy combinations. The war against cancer has found a new weapon. But whether that weapon will be wielded for the greatest good, or the greatest profit, remains to be seen. RSV, flu, and combo mRNA shots, the race to own immunization for decades. Respiratory syncytial virus, better known as RSV, was an overlooked threat in public health discussions. Most people had never even heard of it. Yet RSV is a serious and sometimes deadly virus, particularly for the most vulnerable populations, infants and the elderly. Each year, RSV hospitalizes tens of thousands of young children and older adults around the world. In severe cases, it can cause pneumonia, bronchitis, and other life-threatening respiratory complications. Despite the heavy toll it exacted year after year, there was no vaccine for RSV. Scientists struggled for decades to develop an effective immunization, with early attempts in the 1960s leading to disastrous outcomes, including worsened disease. The challenge lay in RSV's ability to mutate and evade immune detection, making traditional vaccine methods unreliable. With the success of mRNA vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic, pharmaceutical companies saw an opportunity to finally conquer RSV. Moderna's flexibility, its ability to be rapidly designed and adapted, made it a promising platform to target elusive viruses like RSV. Suddenly, what had once been a forgotten pathogen became the center of a new pharmaceutical gold rush. Moderna's RSV vaccine and Pfizer's Abrysvo. Among the leaders of this new vaccine race is Moderna, eager to replicate its COVID-19 success story. Moderna developed an mRNA-based RSV vaccine, mRNA 1345, targeting older adults who are at high risk of severe RSV disease. Early trial results showed strong promise, with high levels of neutralizing antibodies generated in participants. By early 2023, Moderna announced that its RSV vaccine had met primary efficacy endpoints in its phase 3 trials, paving the way for regulatory submissions. Pfizer, not to be outdone, launched its own RSV vaccine campaign. Its shot, branded as Abrysvo, also targeted the same vulnerable populations. Pfizer's RSV vaccine became the first to be approved for use in adults 60 and older and pregnant women, aiming to protect newborns through maternal immunization. The approval of Abrysvo marked a historic milestone, ending decades of frustration in the fight against RSV. For Big Pharma, RSV is more than just another virus. It represents a vast, untapped market. In the United States alone, hospitalizations from RSV cost the healthcare system billions annually. Globally, the numbers are even more staggering. With aging populations and heightened awareness post-COVID, the demand for RSV protection is expected to skyrocket in coming years. Analysts project the RSV vaccine market could be worth more than $10 billion annually by 2030. Moderna and Pfizer both want dominant share flu vaccines, reinventing an old staple. Influenza has long been a major target for vaccination efforts, but the technology behind flu vaccines has barely changed in decades. Traditional flu shots are based on growing virus strains in chicken eggs, a slow and imprecise process. Each year, scientists make educated guesses about which flu strains will dominate, often months in advance, and produce vaccines accordingly. Some years, the match is good and protection is high. Other years, the vaccines miss the mark entirely, and efficacy plummets. mRNA technology offers the potential to revolutionize the way flu vaccines are developed and delivered. With mRNA, scientists can respond much more rapidly to emerging flu strains, updating the vaccine formula with greater speed and precision. This flexibility could dramatically improve vaccine efficacy rates and reduce the burden of seasonal flu outbreaks worldwide. Moderna is aggressively pursuing this opportunity. Its mRNA 1010 vaccine, targeting 4 common influenza strains, has advanced through clinical trials with mixed but improving results. Initial data suggested the first versions of the vaccine were not substantially better than traditional flu shots, but subsequent iterations have shown stronger immune responses. Moderna is also working on a second-generation mRNA flu vaccine, mRNA 1011, designed to deliver even broader protection. The goal is not just to create another flu vaccine. It is to create the best, fastest, and most reliable flu vaccine on the market, a potential game-changer in a space worth billions annually. Flu season is a recurring, predictable event, and Big Pharma understands the power of having a better product ready each year as part of a continuous revenue stream. Triple combo shots, the next big thing in vaccination. Beyond targeting individual viruses like RSV or influenza, the real ambition of companies like Moderna and Pfizer is to combine multiple vaccines into a single shot. The concept of a triple combo vaccine, protecting against flu, COVID-19, and RSV simultaneously, is already moving through clinical trials. The appeal is obvious. One shot, once a year, providing protection against 3 major respiratory threats. For patients, it offers convenience. For healthcare providers, it simplifies immunization programs. And for pharmaceutical companies, it represents a way to bundle products together, increase compliance, and create a premium offering with higher profit margins. Moderna's mRNA 1230 candidate is among the first triple combo shots being tested. Early results have been promising, showing that the immune system can mount a robust response to all 3 targets without interference. Pfizer and BioNTech are also working on combination vaccines, seeking to integrate COVID and flu protection, with plans to add RSV coverage in later versions. If successful, these combo shots could redefine the future of immunization. Annual vaccination campaigns could be streamlined into a single appointment, with Big Pharma providing the proprietary products necessary to make it happen. Analysts predict that combo vaccines could generate tens of billions of dollars in new revenue streams, securing Big Pharma's dominance over respiratory immunizations for decades to come. The race is on. Moderna, Pfizer, and a host of biotech challenges are vying to become the providers of the next generation of vaccines, turning Moderna's pandemic success into a permanent fixture in global healthcare. The question now is not whether the technology will spread, but how fast, how wide, and at what cost to public trust and personal choice. Understanding gene therapy, a new era of medicine. Gene therapy sounds like something from the pages of science fiction. The idea that doctors can directly alter a patient's genes to cure diseases once thought untreatable is one of the most ambitious dreams in medical history. At its core, gene therapy involves introducing, removing, or altering genetic material within a person's cells to treat or prevent disease. Unlike traditional drugs that treat symptoms, gene therapy aims to tackle the root cause of illness at the molecular level. There are different approaches to gene therapy. Some treatments replace a faulty gene with a healthy copy. Others inactivate a malfunctioning gene that causes problems. Some introduce entirely new genes into the body to help fight disease. The technology often uses harmless viruses as delivery vehicles, ferrying the therapeutic genetic material into a patient's cells. Once inside, these new instructions can start to correct the underlying dysfunction. The potential is staggering. Instead of managing lifelong conditions with endless pills, injections, and surgeries, gene therapy offers the possibility of one-time treatments that could permanently correct disease. It is a revolution in how we think about medicine, a shift from managing illness to actually curing it. Gene therapy success stories, Zolgensma and Bluebird Bio. While gene therapy has long been a topic of excitement in scientific circles, real-world success remained elusive until very recently. Two treatments, in particular, shattered barriers and brought gene therapy into mainstream healthcare: Zolgensma and Bluebird Bio. Zolgensma, developed by Novartis, is a gene therapy for spinal muscular atrophy, a rare and deadly genetic disease that affects young children. Without treatment, most infants diagnosed with this condition die or require permanent ventilation before the age of 2. Zolgensma works by delivering a functional copy of the missing or faulty gene responsible for the disease. In clinical trials, treated children who would otherwise have faced severe disability or death gained motor milestones like sitting up, crawling, and even walking. Luxturna, created by Spark Therapeutics, targets a different rare condition, an inherited form of blindness caused by mutations in the RPE65 gene. Patients who received Luxturna therapy experienced significant improvements in their vision, in some cases moving from near total blindness to being able to navigate low-light environments. Both therapies were hailed as groundbreaking medical achievements. They also carried equally groundbreaking price tags. Zolgensma launched with a list price of over $2.1 million per treatment, making it the most expensive drug in history at the time. Luxturna came with a price tag of around $850,000 for both eyes. The sticker shock sparked intense debates about the ethics of pricing life-saving treatments at levels unaffordable for most people without insurance or government support. Still, the success of Zolgensma and Luxturna proved that gene therapy was no longer a distant dream. It was real, it was transformative, and it had the potential to reshape not just rare disease treatment but the entire landscape of modern medicine. Why Big Pharma sees gene therapy as a trillion-dollar opportunity? Big Pharma has always had an eye for lucrative opportunities, and gene therapy is the biggest prize of all. Analysts project that the global gene therapy market could surpass $1 trillion within the next 2 decades. Unlike traditional medications that must be taken daily, weekly, or monthly, gene therapies offer the possibility of a one-and-done cure. But with that comes a business model based on extremely high prices for single treatments. For pharmaceutical companies, gene therapy offers a compelling combination: high unmet medical needs, emotional public interest, and the ability to command premium prices. Patients facing certain death or disability have few alternatives, making the value proposition for gene therapy enormous. Insurance companies and government programs often have no choice but to cover these treatments, creating guaranteed revenue streams once products are approved. Gene therapy also opens doors to markets that were previously considered too small to be profitable. Rare diseases, affecting small patient populations, can now be targeted effectively because companies can recoup development costs with higher pricing. This has led to a surge of interest in so-called orphan diseases, conditions so rare that they historically attracted little research funding. Today, they are at the center of biotech innovation and big pharma acquisition strategies. Moreover, the emotional pull of curing diseases once deemed untreatable creates tremendous marketing advantages. The public relations value of saying a company cures blindness or saves dying children is immeasurable. It strengthens brand reputations, wins regulatory goodwill, and attracts investment, all critical factors in an increasingly competitive biotech landscape. The new targets, rare diseases, heart failure, blindness, and cancer. The range of diseases now in the crosshairs of gene therapy is expanding rapidly. Rare genetic disorders remain a primary focus. Conditions like hemophilia, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and cystic fibrosis are all active areas of gene therapy development. Each new success fuels further investment and broader ambitions. But gene therapy is not staying confined to the realm of rare diseases. Major killers like heart failure are becoming key targets. Scientists are exploring how gene editing could repair damaged heart tissue or regulate proteins that contribute to heart disease. Early-stage trials are investigating whether direct genetic intervention could reduce the incidence of heart attacks or strengthen weakened hearts, offering new hope for millions suffering from cardiovascular disease. Blindness remains a particularly emotionally powerful focus. Treatments building on the success of Luxturna are aiming at other forms of inherited vision loss, with companies racing to create therapies for a broader range of genetic eye diseases. Each breakthrough brings the promise of restoring not just health but fundamental experiences of life, sight, mobility, independence. Cancer, the ultimate adversary, is also a major frontier. While personalized mRNA cancer vaccines represent one arm of this battle, gene therapy offers another. By directly modifying immune cells to better recognize and attack tumors, a technique known as CAR T-cell therapy, scientists are creating powerful new weapons in the fight against cancer. Several CAR T therapies have already been approved for blood cancers like leukemia and lymphoma, and research is rapidly advancing toward targeting solid tumors as well. The convergence of mRNA technology, gene editing, and personalized medicine is setting the stage for a future where genetic interventions are a routine part of healthcare. Big Pharma, with its deep pockets and global reach, is positioning itself at the center of this transformation. But with great power comes great responsibility. Gene therapy holds extraordinary promise, but it also raises profound questions about access, ethics, and the potential for misuse. As Big Pharma races toward this trillion-dollar future, society must grapple with the implications of editing the very blueprint of life. The age of gene therapy is no longer a distant dream. It is here, it is expanding, and it is rewriting the rules of medicine, and perhaps even what it means to be human. The uncharted territory of mRNA technology. Despite the excitement surrounding mRNA vaccines and gene therapy, one fact remains largely unspoken in mainstream discussions: mRNA technology is still in its infancy. Until COVID-19, no mRNA vaccine had ever been authorized for use in humans on a mass scale. While the rapid rollout during the pandemic demonstrated the platform's potential, it also left scientists with more questions than answers about the long-term effects. mRNA vaccines work by delivering genetic instructions to the body's cells, prompting them to produce specific proteins that trigger an immune response. In theory, once the protein is made and the immune system is activated, the mRNA degrades and disappears. However, because the technology is so new, researchers have limited long-term safety data. Most clinical studies, even those used to justify emergency use authorization, followed participants for only a few months. The reality is that the world has become a living experiment, and the true implications of widespread, repeated mRNA injections may not be fully understood for years or even decades. Scientists remain divided. Some argue that the inherent instability of mRNA means it is unlikely to cause lasting harm. Others point out that immune system overstimulation, molecular mimicry, and unforeseen genetic interactions could pose risks that only emerge with time. This uncertainty casts a shadow over the expansion of mRNA into areas like cancer prevention and treatment, where the stakes are even higher. Cancer vaccines and the risk of unintended consequences. The promise of mRNA cancer vaccines is immense, but the potential risks are equally profound. By training the immune system to target specific proteins associated with cancer cells, these vaccines could, in theory, revolutionize oncology. Yet manipulating the immune system is a delicate art, and the line between attacking cancer and attacking healthy tissue can be perilously thin. Autoimmunity is a major concern. If a cancer vaccine teaches the immune system to recognize certain proteins as threats, there is always a risk that similar proteins found in healthy tissues could become targets as well. This phenomenon, known as molecular mimicry, could trigger debilitating autoimmune diseases in some patients. Another fear involves unintended gene edits. Although mRNA vaccines do not directly modify DNA, the intersection of gene therapy techniques and mRNA platforms in cancer research raises complex biological questions. As more experimental treatments combine different genetic technologies, the potential for unpredictable interactions grows. Regulators and pharmaceutical companies are aware of these risks, but the rush to develop and commercialize new therapies has created a climate where speed often trumps caution. The emotional power of offering a cure for cancer can overshadow the sober need for long-term safety evaluations. As clinical trials expand and new products hit the market, the possibility of unexpected side effects remains an uncomfortable but real part of the story. The scandal of gene therapy pricing. Gene therapy's arrival brought not only scientific breakthroughs but also new controversies, particularly around pricing. Treatments like Zolgensma and Bluebird, hailed as miracles for rare diseases, shocked the public with their astronomical costs. Zolgensma's $2.1 million price tag set a new standard for what pharmaceutical companies believed the market would bear. Big Pharma defends these prices by pointing to the high cost of research and the relatively small patient populations involved. Developing a gene therapy can take years of work and billions in investment, with no guarantee of success. Companies argue that curing a disease with a single treatment ultimately saves the healthcare system money compared to a lifetime of chronic care. But critics see things differently. They argue that pricing life-saving treatments at millions of dollars effectively rations care based on wealth or insurance status. In many countries, access to gene therapies is limited to those with comprehensive insurance or government-subsidized programs, leaving countless patients behind. The narrative of curing disease rings hollow when the cure is financially out of reach for most of the world's population. Moreover, the pricing models set by early gene therapy pioneers are setting dangerous precedents. As more genetic treatments enter the market, there are concerns that costs will continue to spiral upward, making cutting-edge healthcare a luxury rather than a human right. Fast-tracking approvals without long-term data. One of the more troubling trends emerging from the COVID era is the normalization of accelerated drug approvals based on limited or preliminary data. Emergency use authorization were justified during the pandemic by the urgent need to curb a global crisis. However, that same mindset is now being applied to a wide range of new products, including mRNA vaccines for RSV, flu, and cancer, as well as gene therapies for rare and common diseases. Fast-tracking approvals allows companies to bring products to market years ahead of traditional timelines, generating revenue faster and providing patients with early access to potentially life-saving treatments. But the trade-off is obvious. Without long-term data, the true risks and durability of these therapies remain unknown. Regulatory agencies often require companies to conduct post-marketing surveillance studies to monitor safety over time. Yet history shows that post-approval studies are frequently delayed, incomplete, or quietly abandoned. Meanwhile, millions of people could be exposed to treatments whose long-term effects are not fully understood. The pharmaceutical industry's financial incentives align with this accelerated model. Early approvals boost stock prices, secure first-mover advantages, and create momentum that can be difficult for competitors, or critics, to overcome. In this environment, caution becomes an afterthought rather than a guiding principle. Regulatory capture, when watchdogs become business partners. Perhaps the most troubling dynamic of all is the growing financial entanglement between regulatory agencies and the pharmaceutical companies they are supposed to oversee. In the United States, the Food and Drug Administration receives a significant portion of its funding from user fees paid directly by drug manufacturers. Under programs like the Prescription Drug User Fee Act, companies pay millions to have their applications reviewed more quickly. In Europe, the European Medicines Agency operates under a similar model, relying heavily on fees from the pharmaceutical industry to fund its operations. While proponents argue that these fees help agencies process approvals more efficiently, critics warn that they create conflicts of interest that compromise regulatory integrity. When the agencies responsible for safeguarding public health are also dependent on the industries they regulate for funding, skepticism about the impartiality of their decisions is inevitable. Public confidence erodes when it appears that safety assessments are influenced by financial considerations rather than purely scientific evidence. The consequences of regulatory capture can be subtle but profound. Lower approval standards, faster timelines, and diminished post-market surveillance all increase the risk that unsafe or ineffective products reach the public. In the race to dominate new markets like mRNA vaccines and gene therapy, these risks are growing, not shrinking. At the heart of these controversies lies a fundamental tension. Science and technology are advancing at breathtaking speed, offering incredible hope for diseases that once seemed untouchable. But at the same time, the economic structures driving that innovation often prioritize profit over prudence. As Big Pharma accelerates into the future of genetic medicine, society must confront the uncomfortable truth. Just because we can rewrite the human body's code does not mean we are ready for all the consequences. Follow the money, Big Pharma's financial stake in mRNA and gene therapy, Moderna's business model and the danger of overdependence. Moderna's meteoric rise during the COVID-19 pandemic was nothing short of astonishing. Practically unknown outside of biotech circles before 2020, Moderna became a household name almost overnight. Its mRNA-based COVID-19 vaccine, Spikevax, turned the company into a pharmaceutical powerhouse, delivering billions of dollars in revenue in an incredibly short period of time. However, that success came with a hidden vulnerability. By the end of 2023, a staggering 94% of Moderna's revenue came from a single product, its COVID-19 vaccine. This kind of overdependence is rare among major pharmaceutical players, who typically diversify revenue streams across multiple drugs and therapies. For Moderna, the dramatic drop in COVID vaccine demand after 2022 triggered a financial reckoning. Annual revenue plummeted from nearly $19 billion to just over $6 billion in 1 year, exposing just how fragile the company's foundation truly was. This sharp contraction forced Moderna to accelerate its diversification efforts. The company is now pouring resources into its broader mRNA platform, seeking to establish itself not just as a COVID vaccine maker but as a pioneer across multiple therapeutic areas. Cancer vaccines, RSV shots, personalized gene therapies, all are now critical pillars in Moderna's desperate race to reinvent its business model before investors lose faith. Big Pharma's billion-dollar bet on mRNA. Moderna is not alone in this shift. Other pharmaceutical giants, including Pfizer and GSK, have recognized the immense potential of mRNA technology and are investing billions to secure their places at the forefront of this new frontier. Pfizer, flush with cash from its COVID vaccine success, is aggressively expanding its mRNA pipeline. Beyond COVID-19 boosters, the company is developing mRNA vaccines for influenza, shingles, and other infectious diseases. It is also exploring mRNA applications in oncology and rare genetic disorders. The partnership with BioNTech, which proved so profitable during the pandemic, remains a central part of Pfizer's strategy to dominate the mRNA space moving forward. GSK, traditionally known for its dominance in the vaccine market, is also betting heavily on mRNA. The British pharmaceutical giant has entered into multiple partnerships and acquisitions aimed at building a next-generation vaccine portfolio powered by mRNA platforms. GSK's ambition is clear: to not just compete but to lead in a future where traditional vaccine manufacturing is replaced by faster, more adaptable genetic technologies. These investments are not just about replacing pandemic-era revenue streams. They reflect a broader understanding that mRNA is more than a technology. It is a platform that can be applied to countless diseases, allowing companies to rapidly design, test, and commercialize new products with unprecedented speed. The venture capital and hedge fund rush into biotech. While big pharma giants consolidate their hold on mRNA and gene therapy, venture capital firms and hedge funds have launched a parallel gold rush into the biotech sector. Startups promising to leverage mRNA or CRISPR-based gene editing for medical breakthroughs are attracting massive investments, often before they even enter clinical trials. During 2022 and 2023, biotech startups raised tens of billions of dollars from investors eager to get in on the next Moderna. Companies focusing on personalized cancer treatments, rare genetic diseases, and mRNA-based therapeutics saw record-breaking funding rounds, despite broader downturns in other sectors of the economy. This influx of capital is reshaping the biotech landscape. Traditional drug development cycles, which once spanned a decade or more, are being compressed under the pressure of investor expectations. Companies are expected to produce positive clinical data quickly, secure regulatory approvals faster, and bring new therapies to market ahead of competitors. The financialization of biotech has created a high-stakes environment where the race to commercialize genetic technologies often outpaces the cautious, methodical approach that medicine typically demands. Hedge funds, once wary of the volatility inherent in biotech, are now some of the sector's biggest backers. Funds that historically focused on tech stocks or commodities are pouring billions into early-stage biotech ventures, further inflating valuations and accelerating the industry's growth trajectory. The result is a biotech boom fueled not just by scientific discovery, but by financial speculation on a massive scale. Targeting diseases with massive market potential. With billions in investments flowing into the space, the focus of genetic medicine is shifting toward diseases with the largest possible markets. While rare diseases remain an important and often emotionally powerful area for innovation, big pharma and biotech investors increasingly prioritize conditions that affect millions. Cancer is the most obvious example. The global oncology market is projected to exceed $500 billion within the next few years. A successful cancer vaccine or gene therapy could command premium pricing while reaching millions of patients worldwide. The race to develop personalized mRNA cancer vaccines, CAR T-cell therapies, and genetic engineering strategies for solid tumors reflects the enormous financial incentives at play. Heart disease is another major target. Cardiovascular conditions remain the leading cause of death globally, representing a vast and relatively underserved market for new therapies. Gene therapies that can repair damaged heart tissue, regulate cholesterol, or prevent heart attacks could revolutionize treatment protocols and generate billions in annual revenue. Even infectious diseases, once thought to be largely managed through traditional vaccines, are being reimagined through the lens of genetic medicine. RSV, flu, and COVID are just the beginning. Companies are exploring mRNA vaccines for diseases like malaria, HIV, and even tuberculosis, aiming to dominate global immunization programs for decades to come. The common thread across all these efforts is clear. While curing rare diseases is noble and important, the biggest prizes lie in common conditions affecting vast swaths of the global population. Big Pharma and its financial backers understand that the future of medicine will be built not only on scientific breakthroughs but also on the sheer scale of their application. The genetic gold rush is underway. The companies that can harness mRNA and gene therapy to treat the most common, most costly diseases will define the next generation of global healthcare, and reap unimaginable profits in the process. Case studies: the mRNA and gene therapy expansion in action, Moderna's personalized cancer vaccine breakthrough. Among the most striking examples of Moderna's expansion beyond COVID-19 is Moderna's personalized cancer vaccine program. In collaboration with Merck, Moderna developed an individualized therapeutic vaccine called mRNA 4157, designed specifically to prevent the recurrence of melanoma, one of the most aggressive forms of skin cancer. Unlike conventional vaccines that target common infectious agents, mRNA 4157 is tailored for each patient based on the unique mutations found within their tumor cells. The Phase 2 clinical trial results, announced in late 2022, electrified both the medical community and investors. The study enrolled 157 patients with high-risk stage 3 or stage 4 melanoma who had undergone surgery to remove tumors. Participants received either Merck's blockbuster immunotherapy drug Keytruda alone or a combination of Keytruda and Moderna's personalized mRNA vaccine. The outcomes were profound. Patients who received the combination therapy experienced a 44% reduction in the risk of recurrence or death compared to those who received Keytruda alone. Moreover, the mRNA vaccine appeared to enhance the immune system's ability to recognize and attack lingering cancer cells, offering new hope for preventing relapses that are often fatal. These results were particularly significant because melanoma is notoriously difficult to treat once it spreads. Current therapies, while improving survival rates, often come with high relapse rates. Moderna's personalized vaccine approach could represent a paradigm shift, not just for melanoma but for other cancers where mutational profiles can be mapped and targeted. Following the Phase 2 success, Moderna and Merck rapidly advanced the vaccine into Phase 3 trials, aiming to bring this new form of cancer immunization to market as soon as possible. The race to personalize mRNA vaccines for broader cancer types has officially begun, and Moderna's early leadership has put it at the center of what could become a multi-billion-dollar oncology revolution. BioNTech's expanding cancer vaccine empire. While Moderna has captured headlines, BioNTech is quietly building an empire of its own in the field of mRNA cancer vaccines. Best known for its collaboration with Pfizer on the COVID-19 vaccine, BioNTech has always maintained that oncology, not infectious disease, was its true long-term focus. BioNTech's research pipeline now includes multiple mRNA-based therapeutic vaccines targeting a range of cancers, including melanoma, head and neck cancers, breast cancer, and non-small cell lung cancer. The company is pursuing both personalized vaccine strategies and so-called off-the-shelf vaccines that can target shared mutations found in many patients' tumors. One of the most promising candidates is BNT122, a personalized cancer vaccine being developed in collaboration with Genentech. Early phase trials have shown that BNT122 can stimulate strong immune responses against tumor-specific mutations, offering hope that it could prevent cancer recurrence or even shrink existing tumors when used alongside standard treatments. BioNTech is also pioneering neoantigen-targeted vaccines, which aim to train the immune system to recognize antigens produced by tumors but not found in normal cells. This strategy could expand the reach of mRNA-based immunotherapy beyond personalized treatments to broader patient populations, increasing commercial viability while maintaining the precision that makes cancer vaccines so appealing. Through aggressive research, strategic partnerships, and heavy reinvestment of its COVID vaccine profits, BioNTech is positioning itself to become a major player not just in vaccines, but in the future of cancer therapy itself. Zolgensma and the high cost of gene therapy. While mRNA vaccines offer a glimpse of personalized medicine's future, gene therapies like Zolgensma show the financial and ethical complexities that accompany these breakthroughs. Developed by Novartis, Zolgensma treats spinal muscular atrophy, a rare genetic disorder that leads to muscle wasting and, if untreated, often results in death within the first 2 years of life. The science behind Zolgensma is extraordinary. By delivering a functional copy of the defective gene responsible for the disease, the therapy effectively halts its progression, giving children a chance at a normal life. Administered as a single, one-time infusion, it is designed to provide permanent benefits with no need for ongoing treatments. The price tag, however, stunned the world. At over $2.1 million per treatment, Zolgensma became the most expensive drug in history. Novartis defended the price by citing the therapy's transformative potential and comparing it to the lifelong cost of managing the disease with traditional treatments, which could far exceed the one-time cost over decades. Despite the controversy, Zolgensma's approval represented a milestone in gene therapy, demonstrating that regulatory agencies and insurers were willing to accept extraordinarily high prices for cures, not just treatments. It set a precedent that other gene therapy developers have eagerly followed, shaping the pricing strategies for a wave of new therapies now entering the market. But it also sparked public outrage and renewed debates about whether life-saving medicines should be subject to market forces that make them inaccessible to all but the wealthiest individuals or the most well-funded healthcare systems. Bluebird Bio's gene therapy battles and the pricing war. Bluebird Bio, a pioneering biotech company, has faced both triumph and turmoil in its quest to bring gene therapies to market. The company successfully developed treatments for rare genetic disorders like beta thalassemia and cerebral adrenoleukodystrophy, diseases that previously had limited or no effective treatments. Bluebird's therapies, such as Zynteglo for beta thalassemia, demonstrated remarkable clinical results, offering patients the possibility of living free from the need for regular blood transfusions. However, the company's journey was far from smooth. Like Zolgensma, Bluebird's therapies came with astronomical price tags, around $2.8 million for a single treatment. The reaction from healthcare providers, insurers, and governments was mixed. While the therapies offered undeniable medical benefits, their cost posed serious challenges for adoption. Negotiations over pricing, reimbursement battles, and concerns about long-term effectiveness created headwinds that slowed the commercial rollout of Bluebird's products. Bluebird's struggles highlight a fundamental tension at the heart of the genetic medicine revolution. Scientific success does not automatically translate into financial success. High development costs, small patient populations, and the societal backlash against extreme pricing have created an environment where even groundbreaking therapies can face uphill battles to reach patients. Still, Bluebird's achievements demonstrate the power of gene therapy to change lives. They also serve as a warning to future innovators. The greatest challenges in the genetic era of medicine may not be scientific but economic and ethical. As the expansion of mRNA vaccines and gene therapies accelerates, these case studies offer a glimpse into the future, a future where miracles come with million-dollar price tags and where the race to cure disease is inextricably linked to the race to dominate new markets. The future: will gene therapy become the new normal? Looking ahead, it is clear that gene therapy and mRNA vaccines are not passing fads. They are rapidly becoming foundational pillars of the pharmaceutical industry. Analysts predict that by 2030, there could be more than 500 mRNA and gene therapy products either approved or in late-stage development worldwide. That number represents an explosion of innovation unlike anything the medical field has seen in decades. Therapies for cancer, heart disease, genetic blindness, autoimmune conditions, and even neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's are now in active development pipelines. The race is on not only to cure the previously incurable but to expand the definition of what medicine can achieve. With each new clinical success, mRNA and gene therapies become more entrenched as the future standard of care. Hospitals are beginning to invest in specialized infrastructure to handle genetic treatments. Medical schools are updating curriculums to train the next generation of doctors in administering personalized gene-based therapies. The groundwork is being laid for a future where receiving a genetic vaccine or undergoing a gene editing procedure is as routine as getting a yearly physical. Big Pharma's push for insurance and subsidy support, recognizing the astronomical costs associated with gene therapy, Big Pharma is aggressively lobbying for systemic changes that will make genetic medicines more profitable and accessible, at least to those who can pay. In the United States, pharmaceutical companies are working behind the scenes with policymakers to encourage insurance mandates requiring coverage of gene therapies, much like childhood vaccinations are mandated in many states. At the same time, Big Pharma is pushing for expanded government subsidies and reimbursement programs to help offset the high upfront costs of million-dollar treatments. The argument is simple. If gene therapies can provide one-time cures, they will save healthcare systems billions over the lifetime of a patient compared to chronic disease management. Governments, facing ballooning healthcare expenditures from aging populations, are increasingly receptive to these arguments. If successful, this lobbying effort would not only guarantee a massive new customer base, but also insulate pharmaceutical companies from the pricing backlash that has plagued the industry. By shifting much of the financial burden onto taxpayers and insurance pools, Big Pharma can continue charging sky-high prices while presenting gene therapy as a public good. Expanding the market, developing countries in the crosshairs. While much of the early focus has been on wealthy nations, Big Pharma is already laying the groundwork to expand mRNA vaccines and gene therapies into developing countries. International health organizations, often working in partnership with pharmaceutical companies, are promoting the idea that global health equity demands access to the latest genetic technologies. On the surface, this appears noble. Offering life-saving treatments to the world's poorest populations could have transformative impacts on global health. But behind the humanitarian messaging lies a business strategy. By creating new markets in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, pharmaceutical companies can extend the lifespan of their products, capture new revenue streams, and shape public health systems in ways that benefit their bottom lines. Partnerships with governments and global health nonprofits are key to this expansion. Subsidized pricing models, technology transfer agreements, and promises of local manufacturing hubs are being used to build goodwill and open doors. Yet critics warn that without proper safeguards, developing nations could become testing grounds for unproven technologies or face long-term dependency on expensive therapies controlled by a handful of Western companies. Ethical frontiers, beyond disease treatment. Perhaps the most profound implications of gene therapies lie not in treating disease but in enhancing human capabilities. As genetic editing tools like CRISPR become more refined and accessible, the line between therapy and enhancement is beginning to blur. Gene editing could one day be used not just to correct genetic defects but to boost intelligence, physical strength, or even emotional resilience. Already, scientists have edited animal genomes to produce stronger muscles, resistance to disease, and improved cognitive functions. Human trials are still focused on curing illnesses, but the potential to move beyond therapy into enhancement is no longer purely hypothetical. This prospect raises profound ethical questions. Should parents be allowed to genetically enhance their children? Should athletes be permitted to use gene therapy to improve performance? Could access to genetic enhancements deepen social inequalities, creating a genetic underclass and an enhanced elite? These debates are only beginning, but they will become central as gene therapy becomes more widespread. As Big Pharma, venture capitalists, and governments continue to invest in the genetic future, society faces critical choices. The promise of curing devastating diseases is real and extraordinary. But without careful oversight, transparent regulation, and ethical reflection, the genetic revolution could deepen existing divides, commodify human biology, and turn health into just another luxury for the privileged few. The rise of gene therapy is unstoppable. But what we choose to do with this power will define the future not just of medicine,